Okay, so good morning. We'll start with today's class. Maybe in the last class we were looking at the what exactly the turbulent flow. So it's some of its different types of turbulence, all those things like homogeneous and maybe heterogeneous or anisotropic or isotropic turbulence and all, and how the turbulence is generated. Although a little bit of in detail we looked into basic from the basic perspective actually. Now today we'll try to look into what is this characteristics of a turbulent flow. Characteristics characteristics of turbulent flow. Fine. See, as we know that turbulence itself is mainly because of the fluctuations. The first characteristics of any flow is actually it is completely fluctuations or fluctuating flow. The first characteristic is actually fluctuations. What is it actually? Why these fluctuations? See, these fluctuations depends on fluid flow properties. So whatever it may be, it may be depends on the fluid properties. Okay, depends on maybe it can be if pressure is fluctuating, it may be due to the pressure, or it can be the velocity, or it can be a temperature, or if it is a density, etc. So these properties are fluctuating. Okay. The second thing is actually if you look at the boundary condition of the system, so it is completely unsteady. It's no more a steady flow. Okay. The boundary condition of the system. See why the fluctuation is mainly because of the boundary conditions. The boundary condition of the system. See boundary condition of the system that may lead to unsteadiness. Unsteadiness. And what do you mean by unsteadiness? It is irregular pattern. So these are the reasons for this fluctuations in particular. Okay. So once I speak of unsteady, see, once I speak of unsteady, so it leads to another characteristic, what is called as non-linearity. So non-linearity. What is this non-linearity? A linear, we say for example, a linear means when I try to move in a particular direction, say you all know that how the straight line equation is actually how we go it actually. A little bit of deviation from my regular path is called as a non-linear. See, if you look at the momentum equation or your Navier-Stokes equation, the equation itself is not depending on one particular property or so. So there is a little bit of cumbersome between one property, other property. So that's why, so whenever we try to analyze this turbulent flow, we try to look into this momentum equation, see, which is very similar to your momentum with a momentum equation, which is highly non-linear, and the maybe it is what we can call it as advective in nature. If you speak in terms of heat transfer, which is unsteady kind of, it is advective in nature. So whenever I speak of non-linearity, that means it is, so the flow is highly non-linear. The flow is highly non-linear and advective in nature. So this is one particular characteristic which you have to look for your turbulent flow. So when I speak of turbulent flow, actually, you can see there are a lot of here and there the pockets where maybe there will be vortices or wakes that are formed. Okay, we call that as vorticity. The third property or third characteristic is actually it is vorticity. Maybe in your the layman's language, it is called as the local wakes actually. So this wakes actually, what is it actually? We call that as eddies in other term. See if these eddies are maybe smaller, okay, or it can be bigger. See why this particular eddies are formed due to the property variation, that is the pressure variation, which already we have seen. What is it? What type of pressure gradient we see? whether it is a favorable pressure gradient or an adverse pressure gradient. So because of the adverse pressure gradient, there may be formation of smaller eddies that may lead to vortex kind of a flow. If a bigger vortices or eddies are formed, actually, I could see the adverse pressure gradient is increasing, drastically increasing, and you can see there is a larger separation of the flow from the surface. There is a complete breakaway of your boundary layers. Okay. This is the third characteristic of any vortex flow. The fourth characteristic. See, when I speak of turbulent flow, it is, I have told that they are highly diffusive as well as dissipative. Okay, fine. If I tell that it's highly diffusive, what do you mean by diffusive? See, if it is predominant in some kind of mixing or phase change. Okay, it's a diffusive means it is predominant in mixing capability. Mixing, maybe it can be mixing, predominant in mixing of the fluids. As I told, maybe in the last class I was giving some example. Maybe in the room we have a fresh air. I'm going to diffuse some kind of a gas or something into your room actually. What is actually? That is a purely turbulent, there is not a laminar kind of flow, that is completely a turbulent kind of flow. Slowly it will get into your room as a diffusive nature. That's a small turbulent flow. Maybe if you look at the eddies of that, it may be a smaller eddies. That's one of the characteristics. Maybe the last, maybe still, maybe we can look into that. So one such characteristic, as I told, it is dissipative. One more characteristic, what we look into it actually, it is dissipative or dissipation. What is it actually? Dissipative means actually, you might have seen that. Okay. See, whenever I see, so suppose for example, so this is one vertex I see. What will happen as the vertex flow from one side to other side, this vertex will start stretching. Fine. This is how it will start stretching. Or we call it as elongation or elongating. When it elongates, what will happen? There is an energy transfer, and that is called as dissipation. Okay, it is called as vortex elongation, vortex elongation or stretching. Because of this actually, because of this particular thing, there is a transfer of energy. There is a transfer of energy. So this is something like around 4 to 5 main characteristics of any fluid. Now, when you look at it actually, when I have the largest eddy or large eddy or small eddy, so how this particular dissipation will be this particular thing. What will happen? See, when I try to look into your fluid, turbulence actually, extract energy that particular fluid, that is the pure, we call it the turbulence. Then it will go to largest eddy, then it will come to large eddy, then it will come to small eddy, then it may be a small viscous dissipative energy. That's how the hierarchy of the turbulent flow is it. See, hierarchy of this turbulent flow, what is it actually? Let me look at. So hierarchy of it is actually, I have a high energy or extract maybe of the fluid, that is purely turbulence. Okay, so it is purely turbulent energy of the fluid. So that's at the highest possible level. So then what will happen? It may lead to formation of largest eddy. Then this large eddy may become slowly, it may, once it starts giving energy, it may become smaller, let me call it as large eddy. Then it may become a small eddy. I am speaking of the energy is going out. Then it may become smallest eddy. Okay, the smallest eddy. See how the smallest eddy is happening. This is mainly because of diffusion. Okay. Now, once this insect starts losing energy, from here the flow may become viscous or laminar. Okay. Once I start giving up energy continuously, once my eddies become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, the flow may become viscous in nature. Okay. Now here, if I try to measure anything, say for example, the largest eddy, if I try to measure the length of it, okay, what is its velocity and what is the time? So just something I'm trying to give, some L, U naught or T and all. So now smallest eddy, if I try to look at it, small eddy or smallest eddy, so what it will happen, the length scale may become smaller, your velocity also may become smaller, your time scale also may become some smaller. Some I'm trying for T dash or T double dash, whatever. So once this turbulence, once it's a higher energy, once it starts giving this energy, because of this all these characteristics, it may slowly turn into a viscous kind of a fluid. Now, once you know this particular thing, we should able to get into an equation how the extraction of a turbulent energy from a flow field will happen. Okay. What is it actually? Say if I have a flow field, something like this. I have a flow field. Let's assume that this is a flow field. This is a flow field. Okay. In this flow field, so I have this a fluid which is going like this, which is highly turbulent in nature. Which is highly turbulent in nature, and there may be a larger eddy. Okay. This eddy will start stretching and may become smaller and smaller as it move from your left to right. So as it's become smaller and smaller, what is more important for it actually? What exactly we are trying to do? We are trying to look into what is called as rate of extraction. At what rate the extraction of the turbulent energy? Rate of extraction of the turbulent energy from this given flow field, from the flow field. Okay. Now, if I try to go with per unit mass, I can do the same thing per unit mass. Okay. What exactly is it actually? Rate of extraction, indirectly, it means that it is the kinetic energy. It is the kinetic energy. Okay. Now, when I speak of kinetic energy, what it is actually, it is your half mv square or whatever it may be. Half mv square. See, rate of dissipation. One is rate of extraction, and other one is rate of dissipation of turbulent energy. Both are kinetic energies. Extraction is one particular thing, and dissipation is on a different scale. So we need to look into these two scales, how these particular things working. One is extraction, other one is a dissipation. Both are very important for us. Okay. Now, why this is very important actually? Because we need to come up with some kind of an equations which will try to relate between this. Relate between this. As you might be knowing that there is something called as Reynolds decomposition for any turbulent flow. Maybe it can be an homogeneous turbulence flow or heterogeneous turbulence flow and all. We have to do some space averaging between a steady flow and an unsteady flow. All those things are there. So all such things, if you want to do, we should understand how the energy is getting dissipated. This is very important. Okay, that's what we are trying to do. So we are looking at the extraction of the energy on one side and rate of dissipation of energy on the other side. Both are on different scales. Both are on different scales actually. Okay. Now, what is very common here? See, when I speak of kinetic energy, So when I speak of kinetic energy, what is the thing which is very important here? It is your Reynolds. What Reynolds number is one particular thing which comes into picture. Okay. Now, what happened is there was one a Russian, maybe we call it as, maybe a few people call him as a physicist, few people call him as he's one of the engineer actually. There is something called as Kolmogorov scale. Few call it as Kolmogorov scale and all. Actually, it is actually Kolmogorov scale. Kolmogorov scale. What is it actually? We try to express the what is it. See, here if you look at, I am trying to express the largest eddy with a L as the particular scale. Similarly, if I try to express the neta or something as some other length of a particular your eddy. Now, what is the relationship between this? Between this neta and L. So, neta is approximately equal to L from L and some non-dimensional number to the power of some minus n or minus 2 or n or 12, whatever it may be. So, what is that n? So, n has to be some number, we have to find it. And this is what proposed by Kolmogorov scale. This was proposed by Kolmogorov. Okay. Now, Kolmogorov, what it actually, he took two things. The rate of extraction of energy, he call it as pi. Okay. The rate of extraction of energy. Okay. The rate of extraction of energy. That is, it is approximated by your kinetic energy, that is half m u square divided by your mass flow rate into time. That is called as C. Now, if you try to look into this particular equation, I will end up with a simple equation, what is called as u square by your T. Approximately half u is not half u square. I am trying to approximate it actually. It may be proportional to, this is called, see what is this T actually? This T is nothing but it is your turnaround time. Turnaround time. What is this turnaround time? Turnaround time is, say for example, I want to achieve that particular thing. How frequently I will be able to do it? Say for example, a break even and all. See, if I start any business, okay, I will tell that my break even time is around maybe 6 months down the line. So from 6 months onwards, I will start making profit on my investment. So what is my turnaround time? It is a 6 months. In the similar fashion, even for the turbulent flow also, we try to have some kind of on a time scale we try to put, and this is called as your turnaround time. Okay. Now, what is your u? See, u is nothing but your velocity. U was actually it is so L by T. Oh, u is actually it is nothing but your displacement by time. Okay. Or I can write T is actually it is L by u. So what we will do actually here, I will just go and substitute for u. See this particular thing, whatever I know, this particular this equation, I will try to substitute in this particular equation so that I will be able to express the extraction of energy. Pi is equal to what? If I try to substitute it actually, pi is approximate to, it is actually u square. Okay, it is u square. Okay, u square by what is this T? T I can write it as L by u. So I will retain as it is. So it is u square by, for T I will write it as it is L by u. So what it will be your pi? Your pi is approximately your u cube by L. So let me call this as equation number 1. So this is your rate of extraction of turbulent energy in any kind of a flow field with respect to kinetic energy. Now similarly, with respect to dissipation, I can get the similar expression in terms of dissipation. Okay, dissipation means actually here we need to look into what is called as how deformation comes into picture. So it's given by this equation. So rate of dissipation, the rate of dissipation of the turbulent energy, turbulent energy. So it's also once again the kinetic energy, the kinetic energy. So here let me call it as some epsilon is approximated by. So I have a viscous term. So this is your viscosity, a viscous term, followed by your deformation. So it is actually deformation in two-dimensional forward, whatever it may be. So ij, whatever. This is your deformation that's happening. Due to deformation. One is mainly because of viscosity, other one is mainly because of the deformation. Now, what is your nu? It is nothing but mu by rho. Okay. Now, what is this deformation? It is nothing but your dou u by, see, I can write it as this is dou u by dou y, whatever it may be. I can write it in terms of dou u by dou y, which is nothing but velocity versus your some kind of a neta or whatever that particular scale I am trying to change. Okay, I can write it as this is actually deformation. Okay, which is equal to what is the velocity component? It can be smallest component. I am trying to write here. See, what I have taken? I have taken some u actually. I have taken u, and what is the corresponding scale? This neta for smallest eddy. So I can write it as, it is actually I can write it as u by neta. Now what I am going to do actually, I will take this and substitute over here. If I do that, then your epsilon is approximated by your nu into, okay, it's actually it is E epsilon ij square. So this will be u square by eta square. Okay. Now let me call this as equation 2. Now what is your Reynolds number? So Reynolds number is approximated by. So we know that the Reynolds number is approximated by maybe u infinity u 1. It's actually your the free stream velocity into some distance x divided by a nu or whatever it may be. Okay. Now, what is your see this? I can write it as what is your x actually at any given point. I can write the, what is your delta star? What is your delta star? Go back to your this thing. What is your delta star or delta double star and all? The momentum thickness or your maybe displacement thickness. I can write this particular thing as u into delta star divided by nu. I can write this particular thing in terms of that particular thickness. Now, if I try to approximate, see why this particular thing is important for us. Hope you remember that there is something called as a creepy flow or whatever it may be. If this Reynolds number is of an order 1, if the Reynolds number is of an order 1, under a condition, if the Reynolds number is of the order 1, what do you mean by it actually? See, for this condition, I am looking at this small eddy. I am looking at this small eddy where this is of the order of this particular thing. So I can write it as, so this is your small velocity u and the corresponding length scale is neta and by E is of order 1. Okay. Or I can write your u is of the order, I can take this neta to your kinematic viscosity to the numerator and this one. So let me call this as some equation number 3. Now, see, your dissipation energy and your extraction energy, your dissipation energy and extraction energy has to be same. Because what I have told, one of the properties I should able to dissipate, see, whatever I'm trying to generate here, see, whatever I'm trying to, your turbulent, that is here I call it as extraction here from the largest energy, and it is getting dissipated. So under these condition, I'll be equating your dissipative energy and your extraction energy. Sorry, extraction energy and dissipative, I'm trying to equate it. And I'm going to write the corresponding equation. So this will be UQ by L, okay, is of the order your neta into U square by neta square. Okay, now, so here if I try to simplify this, okay, I can try to simplify this particular thing. Now what I'm going to do actually, here I will substitute for your U square. And from the equation 3, see this equation 3, I am going to bring it over here. So this will be UQ by L is of the order neta U square, I can write it as neta square, okay, divided by, okay, neta square into neta square, that is neta square. Let me write first, then we'll write in the neta. For this will be UQ by L is of the order of kinematic viscosity to the power of 3 by this to the power of 4. Okay. Now I'm trying to bring in a relationship between this. What is this actually? Your bigger turbulence to smaller turbulence, smaller eddies, how the dissipation is taking place. I need some scale to represent this, what's happening over there. I need some kind of a scale to represent this particular thing. And this scale is given by this Kolmogorov. So that scale is called as Kolmogorov scale. Now I can simplify this. So if I take this, see, I am trying to take the neta is the smallest scale, neta to the power of 4 by L is of the order of your nu cube by your u cube. Okay. Now what is this this particular thing? So here, what is your Reynolds number? I can write it as it is u into your LRX divided by eta. So what I am going to do actually, so here I have, see here what I can do actually, I will multiply by 1 by L cube on both sides, on LHS and RHS. If I do that, so neta to the power of 4 divided by L into L cube, it will be L to the power of 4 is of the order of neta cube divided by U cube into L cube, or I can write neta to the power of 4 divided by L to the power of 4 is of the order of divided by U cube L cube divided by nu cube. What is this actually? This is nothing but your Re cube. Okay, I can write this as neta to the power of 4 divided by L to the power of 4 is of the order of 1 by Reynolds number to the power of 3. Okay, or if I want in terms of neta by L, so what I can write? I can write this as Re to the power of 3. This also to the power of 4, this also to the power of 4. This is minus 3. I am taking it in numerator. Or I want only the scale in terms of neta. So neta by L, okay, neta by L is of the order of Re to the power of minus 3 by 4, or your neta is of the order of L RE to the power of 3 by 4. This I am calling this as equation number and 5, and this is called as your Kolmogorov scale. Okay, what is the thing this Kolmogorov, why this Kolmogorov scale is so important? Okay, Kolmogorov scale try to show the relationship. Okay, Kolmogorov scale try to show the relationship between your dissipation. See, it is nothing but it's a microsurf scale. It's called, I think some of the textbook they call this as Kolmogorov microscale of turbulent flow. Okay, and most of this particular Kolmogorov scale, they try to show this particular thing. What is it actually? If I try to show some kind of a boundary layer, okay, if I try to show some kind of a boundary layer, and maybe let me give an example. So if I try to this particular, say for example, I have a boundary layer, and I have a laminar flow like this. Then there is a little bit of transition, and then I'm going for a turbulent. Okay. Now, this Kolmogorov scale try to show the relationship between what is your, on what length you are trying to scale. Okay, on what length actually. See, it's nothing but it's an average, or I'm trying to show the at what rate your dissipation is taking place at the turbulent level, maybe per unit mass or whatever it may be, for a given kinematic viscosity. For a given kinematic viscosity. Okay, and for some of the Kolmogorov length scale, I think I'm trying to show this is a scale. This is for the length scale, and we have for the time scale and all. This is for Kolmogorov length scale. This is on the length basis. So this is, let me write clearly, that is, it is a length scale. It's a Kolmogorov length scale. Kolmogorov length scale. Okay, length scale I am trying to show in terms of Reynolds number. There are other scales also there. I think we have, I think before this Kolmogorov scale, I think people were using the Taylor's micro scale, some kind of an integral length scale and all, and even one of the maybe scientist actually Batchelor, by G. Batchelor, even he has come with some kind of a turbulent flow scales actually, and people were using it. But here the Kolmogorov scale, why this becomes so popular is because actually he was trying to, these particular micro scales, or these scales are measured in terms of the Reynolds number, which was easily accepted. Okay, so at Kolmogorov scale, what will happen? I can show that based on your Reynolds number. Say Reynolds number is nothing but viscous force by your inertia force. Inertia force by viscous force. So I am trying to build a relationship between your viscosity and your turbulence, which is based on your inertia. So, and also people, I think Kolmogorov scale was able to clearly tell that if the turbulent kinetic energy is dissipated, what is the end effect? End effect is your heat or energy. How they see, whenever the energy is lost actually, what is the thing that's going to happen there? It is in the form of heat actually. So he was able to come up with what is the end effect, Reynolds number or turbulent kinetic energy will end up with the Q or heat loss. Whenever there's a heat loss, it's become irreversible. So he was able to show that in a proper fashion. So that's why this Kolmogorov scale is taken as so important. Okay. Now, so when we speak of this Kolmogorov scale actually, Kolmogorov scale, as I told, maybe whether it's with respect to the energy dissipation or with respect to the length scale, whatever it may be. Length scale, to be very precise, with respect to the energy dissipation. Okay, so that is nothing but amount of energy lost by that particular kind of flow. Maybe it can be maybe a laminar to turbulent transition or in the turbulent. So what is the amount of energy that is lost or energy that is wasted while it becomes a turbulent? Okay, so this is one particular thing. And some of the physics, actually, if you try to look at the physics wise, actually, what will be an ideal number for it? Okay, when you look at this Kolmogorov scale, they keep telling that if my Kolmogorov scale, okay, Kolmogorov length scale, maybe for some kind of an atmosphere, if you look at for an atmosphere, see, if you look at our atmosphere, it's completely turbulent in nature as we move away from your surface. Okay, the atmospheric motion is mainly because of some kind of an large eddies and all. These eddies just got when they start dissipating, it get converted to a smaller eddies, and maybe an order of a few kilometers. It may be an order of few kilometers. Your Kolmogorov scale will be of maybe with respect to laboratory thing. If you try to measure it, this scale may vary from zero point 0.1 to some 10. The range may vary from 0.1 to around 10 millimeters or something. Okay, because what is it actually? Why this is happening is because I am trying to show, see, this particular thing, neta or something, it is smaller compared to this L. L may be in few kilometers sometimes. A condition, I'm giving a condition with respect to atmosphere, how the air movement or your gas movement, all those things happening. So in that case, what will happen? I'll be able to see based on your Reynolds number, I'll be able to build a relationship between your what I'm trying to get. That is in terms of what will be the order of the disturbance that is created due to energy disturbance, energy dissipation. Okay, so this is about your Kolmogorov scale. Okay, so if you have any doubts, maybe I'll be able to discuss. This is only with respect to the energy dissipation or extraction from a turbulent energy to your maybe extraction to your dissipation. Okay, now before we try to look into the what we call it as the correlation functions, all those things and all, let us try to look into this laminar to turbulent transition, how this transition occurs. Okay, laminar to turbulent transition. Laminar to turbulent transition. What is it? Now, say for example, we take any this boundary layer itself. So this is my leading edge. Okay, so boundary layer starts at the laminar flow at the leading edge, and subsequently, so it may goes to this particular region where there is a transition. Okay, then shortly thereafter, it turns to a turbulent. This is purely turbulent. This is laminar. This is how this will go off. Now, what will happen to your velocity profile for this condition? As I told, how the velocity, even though we have the velocity profile, so how this velocity profile will look like for this condition? Anyhow, for the laminar, we don't have any major problem. See, if I try to go with look at this, the boundary layer. So this is how the boundary layer will grow. Then the disturbance, then your turbulent boundary layer. So your boundary layer or your velocity profile in the laminar region will look something like this. So it may be something like this. So this is how the velocity profile may look like. After the turbulent flow is completely settled down, I'll be getting a different boundary layer or different velocity profile. So this is u infinity. So let me call it this is u infinity. But when the transition is taking place, what will happen? There is something called as laminar sublayer, where the laminar sublayer will start actually. You might be seeing that this is how the laminar sublayer will be there. So this is called as laminar sublayer. So because of this actually, what will happen to my velocity profile? See, my velocity profile will look something like this. If this is my velocity, it was supposed to be free stream here. Okay, I could see there is a little bit of disturbance like this here. This is not proper. See, this is disturbance. This is not fully turbulent. Oh, I will get a. So this is how it is. See, once I go to the fully turbulent, my profile may be, my turbulent, your velocity profile may be, it is more flat like this. But while growing, while inside, while at the beginning from transition, as it is moving to your turbulent, maybe at the beginning, this is what my velocity profile will look like. This is how my velocity profile will look like. The turbulent boundary layer continues to grow in thickness with small region. See, what is called as that particular region? We call that as laminar sublayer. I think some textbooks and few textbooks they call it as viscous sublayer also. Laminar sublayer or viscous sublayer. Why? See, because in this sublayer the flow is just as a laminar boundary layer. In the viscous sublayer or laminar sublayer, it is completely laminar. It is completely laminar. Your boundary layer will be very similar to your laminar boundary layer. Maybe you can let's look into some kind of an illustration also. What will happen if it is for a circular duct? What will happen? The same thing will happen. Even circular duct, if I try to look into the circular duct actually, so how it will be? So I will be having a outer surface, then the inner surface, then I have an axis. Okay, I have an axis. So what will be your boundary layer? So your boundary layer at the beginning will be something like this. This is my boundary layer. So profile will be something like this. If it is a laminar, if it is completely developed, so turbulent one, I'll be getting a more flatter, and this will be your boundary layer for a completely turbulent one. Okay, so if I try to look at the boundary layer actually, so this is how the boundary layer will be growing. So I'll be having some kind of a disturbance here, and boundary layer will be growing. But what will happen in this transition actually? In this transition, okay, in this transition, my velocity profile will be something. See, it is not grown fully. There will be a lot of disturbance like this. So this is how my boundary layer will be. This is how. So what is it actually? You might be seeing that a developing region and a fully developed. See, from this particular point, this is fully developed turbulent flow. This is a fully developed turbulent flow, and this is your developing region. This is your developing region. So this may be your boundary layer thickness delta laminar. This may be delta turbulent, delta T. This may be your U infinity. This is for a duct. Okay, duct flow. So there are certain theories. I think if you want, you can. If you want a more understanding, there is something called as Taylor has developed an alternate theory actually. So if you want more understanding on this particular thing, you can just look into that. Taylor's alternative theory for laminar to turbulent flow and all. So based on that, actually, they were able to come up with what will be the Reynolds number for a transition from laminar to turbulent inner duct flow. So from that, actually, they tell that, so if the laminar is, maybe the Reynolds number is around 2000 to 2700, a few books they call it as 2000 to 2600 or 500. So anything between 2000 to 2600 or 700, if the range is there, then I can call that as initiation of a turbulent flow. So initiation, that means if the RE is between, if RE is between 2000 to 2700 or 600, the turbulent flow initiation takes place. Turbulent flow initiation takes place. So after this 2700 or maybe around 3000, I can call it is a completely a turbulent flow. Okay. Otherwise, it will be completely in the transition region or it is in the kind of either laminar. So around 2100 you will tell still it will be laminar. So this range varies from based on your the kind of maybe different parameters of those things. That's why we have this particular. Okay, I think today we'll try to stop here. In the next class,